A few years back, I decided to take a solo trek on the Appalachian Trail in Pennsylvania, which is the longest hiking-only trail in the world. I wasn't going for anything extreme, just wanted to get away for a bit, enjoy the quiet, and clear my head. It was late in the fall, so the weather was cold and the trail was almost empty. In fact, I only passed maybe 2 other hikers going the opposite way. The section of the trail I was on was deep in the woods, surrounded by thick trees, with a small river running alongside it. The only sounds were the soft flow of the water and the occasional birds chirping. Peaceful, exactly what I was looking for. After a while, I decided to take a break, so I found a big rock by the river, sat down, and took a sip of my Gatorade. That's when I heard it, faint but clear, a baby crying. At first, I thought I was imagining things. The sound was coming from further down the trail, in the direction I was heading, and obviously I couldn't just ignore it. The idea of a baby being out here alone didn't make any sense, but on the off chance that someone needed help, I had to check it out, so I got up and started walking. But something felt off. No matter how far I went, the crying always seemed to stay the same distance ahead of me. It wasn't getting closer, it wasn't fading away, it was just there. This went on for about 30 seconds before I stopped. It was weird, and at that point I assumed it was just another hiker further down the trail with a baby. So I shrugged it off, found another rock to sit on, and tried to relax again. That's when the crying suddenly stopped. Not gradually, like someone soothing the baby or walking further away. It just cut off completely, like someone hit a mute button. I sat there for a few more minutes, enjoying the quiet and taking some videos on my phone, when I heard footsteps approaching. Expecting to see another hiker, I turned my head, only to see a woman running straight toward me. She came so fast and got so close that I actually flinched. Her face was frantic, and before I could react, she screamed, "Have you seen my baby?" I was caught off guard, but I kept calm and told her that I had heard a baby crying not too long ago. I told her to follow me, and we started moving down the trail quickly, heading toward where I'd heard the sound. Every few seconds, I turned back to make sure she was keeping up. She was right behind me, silent but determined. Then after maybe a minute, I turned back again, and she was gone. I froze. She had been right there 10 seconds ago. She had been so close, I could hear her footsteps. I called out, "Hello?" but there was nothing. Just the river and the birds. I stood there, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Even if she had veered off the trail, I should have been able to see her through the trees. She was just gone. I turned around, ready to just keep walking, when something caught my eye. Across the river, standing completely still, was the woman. She wasn't screaming anymore. She wasn't moving. She wasn't even breathing heavily like before. She just stood there, arms hanging limply at her sides, staring at me. Her expression was blank, almost unnatural. She wasn't looking for anything anymore. She was just watching. Something in my brain screamed at me to move, and I did. I turned around and walked as fast as I could without outright running. My calves were burning, my chest was tight, but I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I followed the trail until I found a loop that took me back to my car, cutting my hike short. When I finally got to my car, I sat there for a while trying to process everything. Had that really happened, or had I just imagined it? It felt real, like I had actually lived it. But the more I thought about it, the more unreal it seemed. I still don't know what I experienced out there. I just wonder if anyone else who's hiked the Appalachian Trail has ever had something like this happen to them. My brother Jason and I moved out to Colorado a few years back. We'd always wanted to live near the mountains, but neither of us could afford to do it alone, so we split the rent on a townhome in the suburbs just outside of Denver. It was a perfect setup. Not only were we saving money, but we were also only about 10 to 15 minutes away from an incredible stretch of mountains. The only downside, the hiking and camping trails near us were packed. Since they were so easily accessible, they were almost always swarming with tourists and locals alike. Finding any real solitude was rare, which was exactly why Jason and I planned a 3-day backpacking trip deep into the mountains, far beyond the crowded trails. Jason took charge of routing our trip, and a couple of weeks later, we loaded up our gear and drove out to the trailhead. When we arrived, we noticed only one other car parked there, an old beat-up SUV, covered in dust like it had been through some serious off-road travel. That meant, at most, one other person was hiking this route. We took that as a good sign. The first day of hiking covered about 8 miles. Most of it was pretty flat, but the last 2 miles had us climbing up a steep mountainside. It was exhausting, but Jason kept assuring me the campsite would be worth it, and he wasn't wrong. About 3/4 of the way up the mountain, we found a perfect, flat area carved into the cliffside, offering a panoramic view of the entire valley. With the sun beginning to set, it looked like something out of a postcard. We quickly set up camp, pitched our tents, and gathered sticks and stones to make a fire pit. Once the fire was going, we sat around it, talking for hours about everything and nothing. That's when we heard it, footsteps. At first, it was faint, just the soft crunch of boots against dirt, but they were getting closer, slowly but steadily making their way up the trail toward us. Jason and I immediately stopped talking and listened. Within a minute, a figure emerged from the darkness, stepping into the dim glow of our fire. The first thing I noticed? No headlamp. Anyone who hikes or camps in remote areas knows that a headlamp is an absolute necessity if you're going to be out past dark. Yet here was this man, moving through the night as if he didn't need one. He had a grin on his face as he approached our fire, and something about it made my stomach tighten. "Hey, did you need something?" Jason asked, standing up. The man's grin didn't falter. He looked at Jason, then at me, before casually explaining himself. He claimed he was a park ranger and had been following our trail for a while. According to him, this section of the park was closed for the season and we weren't supposed to be there. That set off alarm bell pin. We had gotten permits from the state just the day before. And more importantly, park rangers don't patrol steep remote trails alone at night, especially not without any visible gear. If this guy wasn't who he claimed to be, then what was he doing out here? Jason and I exchanged quick glances, both of us silently coming to the same conclusion. Something was very, very wrong. Still smiling, the man continued. "You both need to leave with me right now. Pack up and follow me. I'll lead you back to the trailhead." For a moment, we didn't move. The man stayed by the fire, his eyes fixed on us, that eerie grin never fading. Jason was the first to break the silence. "No, we're staying here." The man's eyes flicked back to him, then over to me. He lingered for a second before finally turning around and walking away, slowly, like he wasn't in any kind of rush. We didn't relax. We didn't even talk. We just stood there, listening. After a few minutes, we grabbed more dry sticks and threw them onto the fire, keeping it blazing as bright as we could. We weren't sleeping that night. Every so often, we swore we could hear something. Faint, distant footsteps, the occasional rustle in the brush. But we never saw the man again. As soon as the sun was up, we packed our gear and started our hike back, cutting our trip short. The entire way down, we were hyper-aware of our surroundings, constantly checking over our shoulders. When we finally made it back to the trailhead, that same dusty SUV was still parked there. That meant one of two things. Either the guy we encountered had driven up in that SUV, or there was another hiker out there, alone. We reported everything to the police, but nothing ever came of it. No missing persons reports, no strange activity in the area, nothing. But we knew what we saw. That man was lying about being a park ranger. That much was obvious. But the real question was, what had he planned to do if we had actually followed him? And what happened to the other hiker? I don't know, and I don't think I ever will. I've always been a big hiker. Back when I was 31, I took a cross-country trip after breaking up with the girl I thought I was going to marry. Long story short, I caught her messing around with one of my closest friends. Total betrayal on both sides. Needed to clear my head, so I packed up and hit the road. Utah was one of the states I was most excited to pass through. The forests out there are a hiker's dream, and I had my sights set on Wasatch National Forest. The biggest appeal? The seclusion. I don't do crowded trails. I found an unmarked area, drove my car as far as the access road would take me, parked, and geared up. Checked my phone, no service. Perfect. I memorized my starting point and started my trek. Now I know hiking alone in uncharted territory is risky, but that's the fun part. I always download a digital map beforehand because most people don't realize GPS still works without service. And no, before you ask, I didn't get lost. I wish that was the problem. My goal was a lookout point at the summit, about 3 or 4 miles away. The terrain was rough, so I was making slow progress. An hour in, it started raining. Light, but annoying. I hate hiking in the rain, so I decided to turn back. I was maybe 20 minutes from my car when I saw it, and my stomach dropped. All 4 of my tires were slashed. There was no way that was an accident. I whipped my head around, scanning the forest. Nothing. Listened as hard as I could, but the rain made it impossible to hear anything else. I weighed my options. No service, no way I was walking 20 miles back to civilization. I needed high ground. That meant heading back up the mountain to the lookout point and praying I'd get a signal. I turned back towards the woods. About halfway up, I heard it, rustling. Close, maybe 40 yards back. It would stop whenever I stopped. My heart started pounding, but I didn't turn around. Just picked up the pace, hoping I was faster than whoever, or whatever, was following me. The sun was setting and the rain made everything darker. The higher I climbed, the eerier it felt. Then I glanced over my shoulder. Nothing. But anyone could have been hiding behind the trees. Finally, I reached the peak. By some miracle, I had service. I didn't even stop to admire the view, just called the cops, told them where my car was, explained the situation, and that I had AAA. Hung up, feeling a little relieved. At least someone knew where I was. But I still had to make it back down. Walking straight back was too risky. If this was some kind of setup, I'd be walking straight into it. I decided to loop around in a semicircle, hoping to avoid whoever was out there. For a while, everything was silent. Too silent. Then, snap. A twig to my left. I turned. Nothing. A few minutes later, another noise, this time behind me. My blood ran cold. There wasn't just one person out there. I picked up the pace, jogging now, and then in the middle of the forest, I saw something that made my stomach drop even further. A makeshift campsite. There were about a dozen logs circled around a fire pit like some kind of meeting place. Whoever had been here, they were still out here. I went around it and kept moving. Then I saw it. A foot. Someone darting behind a tree. That was it. I took off in a full sprint. I didn't care about noise anymore. I just needed to get out. The sounds behind me got louder. They weren't hiding it anymore. I was being chased. At one point, I risked a glance back. My stomach twisted. There were at least 6 of them, dressed in white, sprinting straight at me. I pushed harder, lungs burning, legs screaming. I could see my car. And then I saw flashing lights. A cop. I nearly collapsed when I reached him. Spun around, the people chasing me, gone, like they were never there. The cop told me he'd already called AAA. I gave my statement, and what he told me next made my skin crawl. Apparently, Utah has the largest population of Mormons in the country. But more importantly, this forest had a long history of hidden cults and strange religious groups. I still don't get it. If they were mad I was there, why not just tell me to leave? Why stalk and chase me through the woods? And more importantly, what would have happened if they caught me? It's something I still think about a lot.